Hi friends, welcome back to my quilt room. Today I'm going to bring you an old-fashioned yet traditional quilt block that dates back to the 1800s and same around the time of the log cabin and the courthouse steps and all those wonderful blocks. And this is called the Shoo Fly quilt block. And this is what it looks like. We're also doing half square triangles, so if you've never done that, I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're going to put this into a Quilt As You Go block, and then I'm going to show you how to put that all together. So I hope you'll stick around, and let's see what we need to get started. Okay, so if we look at this block, it's almost like a 9 patch. So you have 3, 6, 9. And the 4 corners are going to be made up of 4 half square triangles. Then you'll have the center focus fabric, which is half of your triangles. And then we're going to have the background fabric, which is 4 squares for that. So to make the half square triangles, we're going to have a 5-inch focus fabric and a 5-inch background. And then for the background squares, we're going to have 4.5 inches because these are going to be trimmed down to 4.5. So I hope that all makes sense. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So what I did was you can either cut 5-inch squares from a fabric you have, or you can use a layer cake, which is what I did because I wanted each block to have a different pattern. So using that, what I did was I took a 10-inch square and I took my ruler and cut that down to 5 inches. So I cut one direction, 5 inches, and then I turned it. Okay, I want to try not to move it, but my hand hit it, so. And then I went this way 5 inches. And then I got my 4 5-inch squares. So to make our half square triangles, what we're going to do is we're going to take these 5-inch squares and we're going to take our background fabric, and we only need 2 of them because that's going to make 2 each half square triangles, and we need 4. So what we're going to do is with right sides together, we're going to put our background fabric on top of our focus fabric. Make sure those are lined up. And we're going to take our ruler and a marking pen, whatever you have to mark fabric, and you're going to go from this corner to that corner and you're going to draw a line. And you're going to do that on both of these. Okay, so now you're going to take this to the machine, and you can pin this if you want, if you're more comfortable with it. But you're going to take it to the machine, and what you're going to do is you're going to stitch 1/4 inch on both sides of this drawn line. So let's take that to the machine and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so how we sew these up is we're going to take that line that we drew, and I'm using a 1/4 inch foot. So I'm just going to run this line right along this little bar here. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, just run it along whatever, or this type of 1/4 inch foot, just run it along whatever 1/4 inch foot you're using. So I'm going to put that under there. And I'm just going to line it right up with that bar. And I'm going to sew straight down, making sure I keep this line along the edge of my 1/4 inch foot. And if you're a little off, don't worry about it because we're going to trim this up after. So you should have a little room to play with. And then you're just going to do that, turn it around and do that with the other side. Okay, so then our next one, I'm going to show you that again. Making sure your blocks are lined up. You're going to take your foot and run that line that you drew right up to the edge of your 1/4 inch foot. And it's going to sew a 1/4 inch on this side. So now we have them both sewn down, and this is what it should look like. You have your 1/4 inch on either side of that line, or both sides of that line. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to put it right on the line that we drew. Just line it up at that line, and then we're going to cut on that line. And then we're going to do that with the other one. And now we have our 4 half square triangles. So now I'm going to take these to the iron and I'm going to set that seam and press them open. And I'm going to press them to the dark. So now we have these, and we're going to trim these up now to a 4.5. So how I did that was I just took my 6-inch ruler, and you can use any size you want. But my ruler has this 45 line right here, and so I took that and lined it up with my seam line right here, and then I lined up my sides with like a 4.5 and then a little bit, because we want to get our square first here. So right about there. And then I'm going to trim this down. And now I know these two are straight. So now I'm going to flip this. I'm going to put my 45 going this way now. And now I'm going to put 4.5 here and here. So that now I know I'm going to have a perfect 4.5-inch square. So hopefully that made sense. Okay. So now we have a perfect 4.5-inch square. So I'm going to do that with the rest of these. And then I'll show you how to put this together. Now we have our 4 blocks. And how we're going to put the block together is we're going to take our 4 half square triangles, and they're going to go in each corner. And the way you want to orient these is you want to keep your background fabric on the outside. So you have your focus fabric coming on the inside. And when you want to take your center fabric, which we need to cut down into a 4.5 now. have our 4.5 inch focus fabric. Now we're going to take our background fabric and we're going to fill in these spots here. Okay, so that pretty much is our block. We have our our 4 half square triangles, and then our background fabric right here and here, and then our focus fabric in the middle. So now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew this down just like a 9 patch. You're going to sew all the middles to this left-hand side and then sew that to this side. And I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have all those sewn down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this top one to the middle and then sew the bottom one to the middle. And then I'm going to press all my seams and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have our block all sewn down and we need to put this into the Quilt As You Go block. So at the very end, we're going to trim this up at 12.5 inches. So for right now, we want to sandwich this together. And what I did was I cut my backing at about, I think this is about 13.5. And then I have my batting, which is pretty much the same size. And I'm going to layer these two together. Okay, so these are about the same size. As long as they're bigger than your top, you can make them any size you want. So then we're going to layer our top down. And we just want to make sure that we have enough around the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray base this because I don't really want this to move or shift at all when we're sewing. So I'm just going to do a little spray basting. Just a small amount. And you want to make sure you spread this out so that you don't get any puckers on the back. And then I'm also going to do that with the front, just a little bit. And now the way that I sewed this was I used my stitch in the ditch foot and I ran it along my seam, but I sewed on a couple, like maybe 1/8 of an inch on the outside of that seam. And I'll show you that when I go to the machine. And I really liked what that looked like. So let's go to the machine. I'm going to show you how I top stitch this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1/4 inch foot out and I'm going to put my stitch in the ditch foot on. And then I'm going to set my stitch width to a 5.6. And what that's going to allow me to do is I'm going to run my stitch in the ditch foot right in the seam allowance, which is, you know, the ditch. But this is going to sew slightly on the outside. And I'm going to do that actually to both sides. And it gives it a really nice look. So I'll show you how that's going to look. And then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to go down the other side. Okay, so that's what I did to the seams. And hopefully, I don't know if you can see that, but it's stitched on both sides, and I'll show you when we go back to the overhead. So I'm going to continue to do that with all the seams where they intersect. This one, here, and here, all 4 of these. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so it's all stitched down now, and now it's one complete block, and it's all stitched in all points. So this is not going anywhere. And this is what it looks like. Hopefully you can see this. It's just top stitched on each side, and I think that gives it such a really nice look. And then here's the back of it. The back actually looks pretty nice too. I just have to clean up my threads. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this down to a 12.5. And I'm just going to grab, I just happen to have a 12.5-inch ruler, so I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to make sure that my ruler is lined up with my topper. Also making sure that I try to put one line on my seam so I know it's straight. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut this down. Okay, that's 2 edges. Now I know that's these 2 are straight, so I'm going to flip this and line it up with the 12.5 on the bottom and the side. And I'm going to trim the rest. And there we have it. Our block is finished. So there's the front and the back. So now I'm going to show you how to sash these together. Okay, so to sash these blocks together, I chose black because I felt like black really set off these blocks, and they makes them really stand out. So I have 2 done already. I'm going to show you how to do my 3rd one. So you're going to take a 1-inch strip of black. What I did black, you can do any color you want. And I'm going to put that onto the back. And I'm just going to clip this down, making sure my edges match. Oops. Okay. And then I'm going to take a 2-inch strip, which I folded in half and ironed. And we're going to take the raw edges of that and put that on the top of the block. Make sure we line everything up. and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. So I'm going to go do that real quick. Okay, so I sewed that 1/4 inch all the way down, and I used white thread so you can see. And it really doesn't matter anyway. I had it in there, and you're not going to see it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this side and we're going to iron that down. So let me do that real quick. Because this is what's going to join the 2 blocks. So we want to make sure that this stays open. Okay, so now we're going to take the edge of this, the back, and we're going to join that with the back of our next block. We're going to line that up, making sure that our blocks also line up on the edges. So you want to make sure this is nice and square. And then I'm going to just clip this. And now I'm going to sew this a 1/4 inch all the way down. Okay, so I sewed that a 1/4 inch, and now we're going to basically open that up and press that down. Okay, so now we're going to actually go this way. So now we're going to take this top one and we're going to fold this over. And I'm going to iron that down. And you want to make sure you're clipping your threads as you go too. Okay, so now you could either pin this, or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little basting glue just so it stays down while I'm sewing it. So I'm just going to put a line of like just a few dots of glue here and there. Just so it holds it down. And then I'm just going to heat it a little bit to activate the glue and dry it. You don't want to use steam on this. You just want to iron it down. Okay. So now I'm going to top stitch all the way down. Now I will change my thread to black because I'm doing it on the top. But I'm going to leave it white on the back because I don't want to really see the stitching on the back. So I'm going to go do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we are top stitched down, and I'm not even sure if you could see the black on black, but this is all top stitched down. And then on the back, I did the white, so I didn't have to have this black line there. And then I'm not sure you could see that either, but it just runs right along here. So that's what the back would look like. So now we have 1 row done. And you're going to continue to do that with however many rows you have. And then you're going to join the rows together the same exact way. And then I'll be back. I'm going to do that and then put my binding on, and I'll show you the finished product. So here's the finished quilt. I put my rows together and then put my binding on. And here's the back. That looks really nice too. And I hope you really enjoyed this block, and I hope you make one for yourself. I think it will make a beautiful quilt. And if you like this video and found it helpful, I hope you give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe, and please hit that notification bell so you'll know when my next video comes out. And as always, happy sewing and sew something happy.